Hey everybody, this is Ryan. I live in Ivywild on Brickside Street, and I wanted to do this video just to give you a little update to have some continuity with what's going on with some of the homeless fires that we're seeing. And so just to give you a little backstory, this was January 4th of this year. This was a photo that I took of a homeless campfire that erupted underneath the Nevada Bridge, and I gave the permission for Gazette to use it. And previously I had been under that bridge, actually. I'd done an interview, and I actually worked with, I did an interview with Trig, who works with Blackbird Outreach, which is a part of the Coalition for Compassion and Action. And I'll get to him in a minute because he is relevant to the story. And I think he's a wonderful person. He helps a lot of folks. But I do have some criticisms, particularly handing out propane tanks, which we'll get to in a second. But this was the first fire that I noted that there were reports of explosions, which firefighters said were propane tanks. The very next day, on January 5th, this was underneath 21st Street Bridge over Fountain Creek, and this homeless fire erupted and basically burned some lines that affected a lot of businesses. This guy was at City Council, and he voiced his concerns because he's a business owner. And so that was January 5th. And from that fire, and really the fires in general, there was a call to have a meeting. And so on January 11th, this was done. I went here. This was at the Westside Community Center, January 11th. And there on the left is El Paso County Sheriff Lieutenant Bill Huffer, and the Colorado Springs Fire Department. Somebody was supposed to come, and but they did not. And then the homeless outreach team, I'm not sure. I thought they were supposed to come, but they didn't come. So Councilman Scorman on the left there did come, as well as Andy Phelps on the right. He is the city's homeless prevention coordinator. But to get to my point, this is Trig, very nice guy from Blackbird Outreach, and unfortunately, he says, I have something quoted here. So he says if people are sick and tired of fires, they should donate so campers could have more propane-powered heaters. But then somebody said, wait a minute, they are flammable. That doesn't seem very safe. And he says, well, they're popular because they can be set closer to a tent than a fire. Now, the fire department later clarified the fires must be 10 feet away from combustible structures, which include tents, trees, that kind of thing. Or they must be at least, I believe it's 15 or 25 feet away from a building. But in any case, as far as the camps go, they clarified that essentially all fires within the camps are illegal because they are close to combustible materials, aka trees and the brush. So let's see, that was January 11th. Later, this was yet again another story, January 27th, of propane tanks exploding with trees on fire. And after 30 minutes of battling the flames, the fire was under control. But because of the materials that the homeless camp firefighters say, it took a little while longer to put it out. Now, I asked Trig from Blackbird Outreach, I said, basically, that's what happens. You said you give the propane tanks, and here we have another example of them exploding. Now, he denies giving tanks to this location, to this camp. He does admit to giving propane tanks, though. He says, we don't want to give them, but the fact is there's no adequate shelter, he says. Until that point, we're going to deliver. So I pointed out, well, wait a minute. Actually, earlier, propane tanks exploded at the South Nevada fire, which, again, this was January 4th. And I corrected him that actually there's been 50 to 100 available warm sleeping spots at the Weber Street Salvation Army. I've been calling every few days just to get an update. Basically, when there is available space for someone to sleep, it is not legal for them to camp outside. It's against city ordinance, and the homeless outreach team is supposed to enforce when there is shelter available, and that has been the case. Now, Trig at Blackbird disputes this. He says there's over 900 people unsheltered outside. So the question remains, with nowhere to go, we're going to continue to deliver propane, and he claims yes, there is a potential to cause fire, but it's much lower than open fire pits. Well, I don't know if I'd probably dispute that, but regardless, open fire pits are illegal. But in any case, so I mentioned that you know, the shelters going to be full are irrelevant because it's currently not full. So we're talking about the present here. There is somewhere to go. That's a fact. But you know, the reality of giving propane tanks speaks for itself. So this one was last night, February 2nd. Man was taken to the hospital. Now later I actually met this guy. So he is a homeless guy. He was treated for slight burns. Notice it says fire was in the same area as the one last week. And propane gas tanks exploded, causing a fire. Several tents caught fire. And I noted today the trees were burned up to about 15 feet tall. And there were at least 15 small propane tanks and 3 large ones. So, I mean, nobody denies that they were all exploding and they were all propane tanks. In fact, here's a picture I took today of some of the aftermath. I mean, you really can't see everything because it goes up the trees. But in any case, I said, you know, this is just not good that you're giving propane tanks. So Trig replied, you know, this guy, it's unfortunate what happened. He's been in our camp for 6 months. He fills the smaller tanks for people to give all over the camp. So, you know, unfortunately, we have another admission here of distributing propane tanks. And again, I saw no less than 20 of them today. So I asked Colorado Springs Police Department, I'm not sure who this should be directed to, but I'm interested to receive a comment from you regarding the fact that we have an organization openly admitting to giving propane tanks to illegally camped homeless individuals. And unfortunately, as you know, the propane tanks have led to at least 3 documented fires with explosions over the past month. Is giving this material, which is going to be used to commit illegal offenses, something that CSPD is okay with? And they want me to call dispatch, so that's what I'm going to do.
We are currently experiencing a high call volume. Your call is important to us. Please remain on the line and your call will be answered as quickly as possible. Information officer, I can give you his phone number.
Okay, sure, that'd be great.
It's going to be Lieutenant Black.
Okay.
And his number is...
Okay, so I just called the CSPD non-emergency number, the dispatch, which is what I was instructed to do. And she's telling me to call Lieutenant Black. So that's what we're doing.
You've reached the desk of Lieutenant Howard Black, Public Information Officer for the Colorado Springs Police Department. I'm currently unavailable. If you would leave your name, number, and a short message, I will return your call as soon as possible. Thank you.
Record your message at the tone. When you are finished, hang up or press pound for more options.
Hello, Lieutenant Black. My name is Ryan Jones. I live in the Ivywild neighborhood. I'm kind of near I-25 in Tejon. I'm calling, I was directed by CSPD Dispatch to call your number. It's in relation to get a comment on something. As you are probably aware, there's been, in the past few weeks, at least 3 documented homeless fires that have been accompanied by exploding propane tanks, which firefighters have had to deal with. And so I'm trying to get a comment of CSPD's opinion. There's an organization called Blackbird Outreach, which is a part of the Coalition for Compassion and Action, which probably does a lot of good things. I've met some of the folks there, but unfortunately they do admit to giving propane tanks to people illegally camping when shelter is available, which has been the case. But in any case, as you know, the propane tanks have led to some explosions. And so I'm just trying to figure out if giving those materials used to commit those illegal offenses is something that, you know, CSPD is interested in looking into. To me, it just sounds like, you know, being an accessory to knowing that a crime is going to be committed, you know that they're going to be used to create illegal fires. And, you know, unfortunately, so far, we've got 3 documented cases in the past few weeks of explosions with fires. So if you could give me a call back, I would appreciate it. My number is... I would appreciate a call back. Thank you so much. Bye. So now I'm calling the Salvation Army. The Weber Street location never picks up the phone, so I have to call their other location. Usually they pick up.
Salvation Army Shelter and Services. How can I help you?
Yes, ma'am. I'm curious. I've called the Salvation Army on Weber Street. They don't answer, but I'm curious if you know like how many beds that they may have available tonight.
We don't know. We don't have any way of them to communicate that with that, so we never know how many they have. They just call us if they're full, and they've yet to be full.
Oh, they're yet to be full. Okay. And that's since they've opened, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I have called them before, and sometimes a person answers the phone and they do know how many beds have been, or how many are available, but she didn't know, but at least she clarified that it's never been full. So there we go.